Welcome to Sports Medicine on Tap. My name is Brandon O'Line. I'm sitting at Neck of the Woods Brewing Company with my good friend Dr. Frey. Dr. Frey, how are you?
Not as good as I am sometimes.
Let's not dive too deep into playoff baseball right away, huh?
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh,
Unfortunately, those Mets couldn't figure it out at the end of the year, huh?
Yeah. I almost hope this is a good thing, a little wake-up call that the pitching just wasn't there all year.
Right.
It was smoke and mirrors for the first half of the season, and maybe that problem gets corrected, and then they will be a formidable team.
Yeah, let's see what happens as time goes on and we get forward here for the Mets. But it's unfortunate you see a team that spends so much money on their roster and they have such a high payroll and that doesn't amount to anything. Yeah.
And I got to say, I know I think a lot of people like ripping Cohen and whatnot, but I am still super happy that guy owns the team. He is dedicated. He wants to win, right? And he has deep pockets, which is a nice advantage. But he does want to win, and so I feel this is someone who takes it seriously, and he does. He's not just putting a team up there. He's not just making money. He is probably making a lot of money off it, but he does want to win.
Correct.
And so I still feel there's hope for the future. Though hopefully, it was painful this year as it has been in the past so many times. but hopefully they'll get the ship righted at some point in the not so distant future. Did you watch any of the Ryder Cup?
I did not.
What? Are you kidding me? Nothing?
Not really. No, I can't say I have.
I would say usually it's a kind of a fun thing for me to have on kind of in the background.
Right.
Maybe not as the team that I root for is in they're fighting for their playoff lives. But in this particular scenario, it took place at Bethpage State Park. Mm-hmm. And so, I was born in the Bronx. Actually, this is going to be a whole big story now, right? I was born in the Bronx, right? And so, but we moved out to Bethpage when I was 1. I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember the Bronx other than, Pelham Parkway is where I went to visit my grandparents.
Right.
So other than that, I don't really know the Bronx, but I grew up in Bethpage. There were times when my buddy and I would go and hit, golf balls at Bethpage State Park, at lunch. The state park is a 5-minute drive from the high school. And, and actually most of the park is in Farmerdale. It's actually not. It's not actually in Bethpage, but the entrance in the main building there is a Bethpage address.
Right.
So it's just really cool. It's exciting. I played golf there 1,000 times. And the whole lure of it. There's this 5 18-hole golf courses there, and Bethpage Black is the premier course. That's where where the Ryder Cup took place, and there's a lot of lore. I'd only gotten on living in that town and playing there. And I did all the stuff, all the stories for people who don't know, the cars lining up at night and trying to get off and try to get a tee time. That's all true. I used to bar back at a place called the Oak Beach Inn on Long Island, and we would finish up at 3 a.m. My buddy and I would drive to Bethpage, and we'd just get in line with the other cars.
Wow.
And even still, we would be maybe the 20th car in line at that point, which is nuts, right? For a tee time.
Right.
And even still, Black is already sold out, or so there was other stuff going on, and the earliest tee time would be 1, and you're I got here at freaking 3 a.m. Are you kidding me?
Right.
But so it was really, really cool for me to see Bethpage,
that makes sense.
The U.S. Open, and see all these holes, and I've been there before, so it was super exciting. And then as it turned out, I don't know if you followed it at all, even if you didn't watch, the U.S. got absolutely manhandled day 1 and day 2. They were down by I think the largest deficit of really in Ryder Cup history going into day 3 on home soil. And my son and I, he actually had a prospect day this past weekend, so we were in Baltimore for that. We were looking at the this is Saturday night. We're looking at it and it's over for the U.S. And then we get home from the prospect day, and I turn on the TV, and it's all red, all U.S. Winning every match, and
wow.
It was they almost pulled off one of the greatest upsets of all time.
That would have been cool.
It would have been phenomenal, and it was just too much to overcome. But it really was a great showing or a great comeback by the U.S. team.
Yeah.
And then to further to bring it back full circle, right? I was born in the Bronx, thus initially I was a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
But then growing up in Bethpage, which is on Long Island, Shea Stadium was closer than Yankee Stadium.
Right.
And a lot of my friends are all Mets fans. And actually, I remember my buddy Eric Bachman, a guy, I went to a few baseball games with him. His family, they always went to Shea, and I watched the Mets. And so in 1986, I got on board. And then even more ridiculous. So a few years ago, was it last year? 2 years ago, my buddy and I, a friend down here in Hannaford, a guy Dan Kubikian, he's a I think he's periodontist. He's implants for dentistry, and big Mets fan, grew up on Long Island, whatnot. And he and I are going to a game. I'm telling this story. You're probably too young to remember this, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But in 1986, right, that was a great season for the Mets. They dominated. It was wonderful. Like Keith Hernandez, Dwight Gooden, it goes on and on and on. All these great players. And they made a music video, which was a little bit ridiculous. It was that was the first one to set off this trend of other ones. I guess the Bears did a music video too. I think that was 85. And so I'm telling my buddy Dan, as we're driving to see the Mets game in which they were inducting Keith Hernandez into the Mets Hall of Fame. Okay. And I'm like, way back when in 86, I went to this doubleheader with my buddy, and in between the two games, they recorded this video, and it was like the "Let's Go Mets" video that everybody in it was at that point it was kind of a big thing. Right. And I was like, I've told a number of people the stories, and they actually don't believe that I was there. And my friend Dan looks at me, and he's like, "I believe you were. You know why?" I'm like, "Why?" He's like, I was there as well.
Oh, no way.
So he was at the same doubleheader, and he remembered everything. They're holding up the signs, and everyone had to chant, "Let's go, Mets, go." It was ridiculous. But anyway, so that was a great year, and then ever since, kind of regret making that switch. But whatever. Right. It is what it is. Here we are, suffering with the Mets yet again.
They're a very interesting full circle moment there for sure. Before we go ahead and deep dive into tonight's episode, though, a quick shout out to our sponsors, Virtual Orthopedics and Spine. They have you covered from runner's knee to dog walker's hip to yard work back and laptop wrist. They have a doc for that. So find the right specialist for you at virtua.org/ortho. Tonight was a easy topic of discussion, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
We did just deep dive into the Major League Baseball a little bit and talked about playoffs, but we are going to go back to the NFL. And the biggest name of injuries from this past weekend, well, not even this weekend, Monday Night Football, was Tyreek Hill last night. As mentioned, we record on Tuesdays. This will come out on Friday. So Tyreek Hill last night went down with a brutal injury.
Gruesome, yeah.
And it's I was just finishing up putting my kids to bed, and then you texted me, did he just completely dislocate his knee?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, that's not a good – If you saw it and you texted me that, and I was like, oh, that can't be good. And sure enough, went on good old social media, and there's videos of it, and I was like, that's not good at all.
Why is his leg pointing the wrong
his
way?
leg was – and at first, we were texting back and forth. We were like, we got to see what the report says, knee versus ankle. And then I looked at the video a couple times again, and I was like, no, I see the posterior side of his ankle pretty good, and it looks like his whole calf, but it's completely rotated off to the side 90 degrees. That's not a good look.
That's bad news.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, too, before we go into the anatomy and the actual medicine part of it, but I think it's interesting from just checking social media throughout the day and seeing if updates as it goes. The biggest thing that I've noticed is that everybody is on social media is talking about Tyreek Hill's demeanor while this is all going on. Smiling.
Yeah.
Kind of in a good spirits or whatever. And per their head coach, Mike McDaniel, he was just saying, are the guys okay? Hopefully they focus on, they just get the win of the game, so on and so forth.
Commendable,
and it's also crazy to think that your season's over. You just had a very significant injury. You're gonna alter your career in a sense, and you still worry about the team and all your teammates and stuff. And it's a little bit of a selfless moment for him,
right?
And it kind of shows his maturity and his age in the game a little bit, which is a different side of what you see. And it's not saying that I'm sure he's had his moment of emotion where it's like, oh man, this is really happening, and it sinks in.
Right.
But everyone is just taking that part of it and kind of showing it more. And there's videos of him in the ambulance ride. I don't know who or why you're recording an ambulance driving away, but it has Tyreek Hill in it on the highway. They're recording him through the dash cam, their dashboard into the ambulance. But
probably not a great idea.
No, definitely not. But it's just interesting that he kind of did have a positive outlook on it, and it's tough because I've seen many times in my career, and I'm sure you've seen it as well. If you've had those conversations with those folks of hey, your season's over, and it's very emotional a moment, and it's very rare you get to see someone on a higher side and just an optimistic side of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a bit of credit to him.
Very nice.
And I think,
especially I think he's thought of more of this diva guy who maybe hasn't always had the best sort of team, outlook and whatnot.
And he's had a rough time in Miami in general.
Right.
Like he started off on fire.
Right.
I think his first year was great, and then
Man,
last
that
year,
guy's talented.
and last year didn't do so great. He played through this wrist injury, didn't get great, didn't do statistically didn't do too good, and now he's 31 years old and just had a major dislocated knee with multiple ligament injuries.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our focal point tonight. And we're going to go around the horn a little bit of the knee itself because some other folks in the NFL also had ligament injuries of their knee.
We were already texting about like let's do the ACL versus PCL, and then all of a sudden like, whoa, we just got ourselves a multi-lig.
Right, exactly.
Let's add that to the mix. Yeah, and part of me also suspects that like I don't know if people realize the seriousness of this injury. Like Tyreek Hill probably did not realize the seriousness of that particular injury.
Correct.
He just probably was like, I was in excruciating pain and now I'm in less pain, but doesn't realize like you're still not out of the woods. Like this is really
this
bad.
Is a very small step forward into a very long rehabilitation process.
And more than that, like you're at risk theoretically. Like you can lose your leg. You can lose, like there's a lot to go over in that one.
And I think, I don't know, like I feel like the general pulse of the discussion is always as people just assume it's all going to be all good and he's going to come back and it's going to be fine.
Right.
And like we mentioned, we're going to be talking about Malik Nabers as well, who tore his ACL, right? Yeah. In that discussion, and I feel like the ACL in particular, like, okay, done for the year, rehab, we'll see you in 9 to 12 months, you'll be back, you'll be playing again, no big deal. But when you have these significant knee injuries like this, it's not just like, okay, cool, see you later. Like you're going to go quick surgery.
There's more to it.
There's more to it. There's a lot more. It's not an isolated ligament that got injured. It's multiple. We don't know all of the details of which ones. Like I read a report on ESPN that Mike McDaniel, their coach, confirmed that he tore his ACL with other ligaments.
But, so his ACL was involved. Because it isn't always.
No, correct. Yeah. He did confirm that he did tear his ACL. But then you worry about the other things that are also pretty important.
Right.
Blood supply, nerve supply, all those things are stretched, could be pinched, could be torn. Yeah. That's where you get
That's where this is a really big deal.
It's very big deal. And, I think the emergency management part of it is like he was put in an air cast, he was splinted, sent right to the hospital. And that's
sounds like they did great.
Yeah. And I think timing of it, too, is like a credit to the medical staff on both teams in Miami because they were in Miami, right?
Yeah.
So, having those things set up in place is also pretty beneficial so that you can get these things done in an efficient manner to help these folks who are injured get, in theory, it could have been a limb-saving operation or a limb-saving scenario where, you had to get him so fast to get there. And it seems like they did everything really quick, got him off the field like they should.
Right.
And per some reports that we read before we started recording is that he already has had surgery.
Right. That's fast.
Pretty fast. And then they also said that he may only be needing one surgery.
I am struggling to put that all together.
Yeah. And I think we should dive into that a little bit and your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And kind of how these things usually kind of shake out.
Should we go through the ACL, the PCL, the other things, and the MCL before we get into the multi-lig?
Yeah, I think so.
Circle back to Tyreek?
I mean, because we're going to touch on those and it's kind of how those are treated as well, and then we can kind of tie it all together. I think it's a good idea. So like we mentioned, right, Malik Nabers from the New York Giants, who's a stud of an athlete.
Wow.
Starting off a decent year, doing well. The Giants moved from Russell Wilson and started the rookie Jackson Dart, who's got a lot of promise.
He looked great.
Looked really good
in the spring, or not spring, but
in the preseason. And they drafted him. They went and got him early. They made. I think they traded up to get him, if I'm not mistaken, in the draft.
Right.
Really good, and against the Chargers, who were pretty hot coming into this week. They
were undefeated coming in.
Yeah, and Justin Herbert playing pretty well.
Yeah.
Quentin Johnson figured out how to catch a ball
Lighten
consistently.
Right.
And they got Keenan Allen reborn in his last little.
I don't know what's happened to Ladd. Yeah. Of course, that's the guy I took.
I took him as well in one league, so it's like, it's so tough of like. And then they have all these guys and all these pieces that are doing well, and then they come against the Giants who aren't doing so well. Yeah. But whenever you make a quarterback, you make a quarterback switch like that, like
spark,
it could be a spark plug. And I think Jackson Dart has just filled the role, and he did really well in his first. But unfortunately, it came at a cost for the Giants fans, and now you take down Malik Nabers.
That's tough, right? Like all this optimism, good young quarterback, looked great in preseason, gets his opportunity, and all of a sudden, like not just your best wide receiver, but one of the best wide receivers in football, done for the year.
Yeah, and it's in sophomore year, I believe he's the second
Yeah,
year
I think
in.
so. Yeah.
And he just went up for a catch, had a weird plant and twist. You saw the tibia kind of rotate in and just made a little move, and then he goes down mid jump and starts grabbing the leg, and that's never what you want to see. Those kind of non-contact ACLs, which is very common.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it? I thought he was running down the field. I wasn't watching.
It's weird that they call it non-contact, but
Yeah.
he was in a one-on-one situation where he kind of like was with a defender, jumped for the ball, and when he planted to jump is when the knee
That's
kind of
when it
twisted in,
Got it.
and then he jumped up, and then once he took off the ground, he must have felt it pop, and then he just lost all jump, and he just went kind of started to go right for the leg.
So my son and I were driving back from Baltimore, and we really didn't watch really much football all day. And I'm in the car, and he's like, "Oh, Malik Nabers got hurt," and he reads the description of the injury to me, and I'm like, "Oh, that's going to be his ACL." It is. It's a very stereotypical, like the non-contact, usually oftentimes pivoting, twisting, whatnot, and they grab their knee and down they go. Usually that's your ACL. Yeah. We've beaten ACL to death, right? We've talked about it, and we will talk about it again because it's just such a big deal. And
it's an evergreen topic in the world of sports medicine, the ACL.
But he's done for the year, right?
Yep.
Now that's in contradistinction to, let's say, Ricky Pearsall, we think.
Yeah, so Ricky Pearsall is an interesting case, too, of if anyone has listened to our last few shows, Dr. Frey and I are very big Ricky Pearsall fans.
Guy can play. Good situation.
Good situation. He's got Ayuk is out with an ACL MCL combo from last year. Ricky Pearsall did really well. He was drafted really high, like we've mentioned before. Came into this game on the injury report a little bit questionable. Was in and out of practice limited. But then he goes for a pass during the game, and he kind of falls on a flex knee on the sidelines, and you could tell he was hurting a little bit. And he went back in for a play, I believe, and then he came back out, and then you saw him on the sideline trying to work it out, try to figure it out, and then they ended up shutting him down after that. So the biggest concern here is a PCL injury, but the bit of an irony behind it is that he's a San Francisco 49er.
Yeah.
We just talked last week about Mac Jones and his PCL injury.
Yeah.
Last year, Christian McCaffrey on the 49ers also went down with the PCL injury.
Yeah.
It's just weird how it kind of happens in bunches in a sense.
If you live in San Fran, spit out the water.
Yeah.
Stop drinking.
Stop falling on your flex knee because those PCLs are a little weaker for whatever reason.
Right.
The interesting part about this is that, we could talk about it too, is that PCL is one of those ones that's a little different in that, not always a surgical case, particularly.
Usually not.
Yeah.
If it's isolated PCL,
it's not that big
unusual.
of a, right.
Yeah.
But the problem with this in regards to this week or whatever is they play on Thursday night this week.
Yeah.
So it'll be it's interesting too that this show will come out on Friday or so. And so the game's already going to be happening. So we don't know exactly what Ricky's going to be doing for this week if he's playing.
Yeah.
I think he might be on the tail end of not playing.
I
think that's a short turnaround. Sunday to Thursday to play with a banged up knee that you kind of re-injured on top of injuring already.
If this is a PCL injury, I think the decision to play is a terrible one. If you just injured it, right? So if it's isolated PCL, we typically grade them 1, 2, and 3, and it depends just how badly it's torn, how loose the knee is, and almost never you don't operate on these right off the bat.
Correct.
Ever.
Yeah.
And then if they remain symptomatic after they recover, then sometimes down the line you'll operate on it. If it's a combined injury, which you're going to get into, ACL, PCL, blah, 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 whatever it is, then totally different story. But if it's just an isolated PCL, you never operate on these right off the bat. And for the most part, grade 1, grade 2, so sprain but not a full tear, depending on degree of injury. Again, essentially never surgery.
Right.
Grade 3 will sometimes become symptomatic or remain symptomatic. And it's very different than an ACL type symptoms. ACL, after you start to recover from it, you're fine for everyday stuff most of the time. Sometimes people are super loose, but the majority of people they're fine for everyday stuff. It's just strenuous activities, sport, cutting, pivoting, whatnot. Someone with the ACL deficient knee can't do.
Right.
With the PCL, it's almost the opposite, right? They actually do okay with sports sometimes, despite the torn PCL. The problem is coming down the stairs, walking up a hill, descending. I will say decelerating. Like you're sprinting, you're trying to if you're going into your your cut or your break, and as you try to slow down, sometimes that'll people will feel that. But in general, it tends to be more like you tolerate sports well. It's just the everyday stuff that tends to be a problem with the PCL.
Yeah.
And so if someone can't get over the hump with that kind of a thing, then eventually they'll get surgery for the PCL. One of the other drawbacks is we can do ACLs much better than we can do PCLs.
Yeah.
Is the bottom line, right? Our results are better. And thus, if for PCLs, they almost all stretch out a little bit. So if you're a tiny bit loose, don't do it, because in the end, your graft on the PCL is going to be about the same as a little bit stretched. And if you're very loose, well, okay, then we can make you better.
Right.
And so we tend not to rush into that PCL. I would be surprised if he has a PCL tear. I would be. I would.
And I think
shocked.
it's also like it could be a situation where like he may have had a PCL sprain going into last week. Then he took a good fall, and then he might have tore it. Like,
and that's what we worry about,
Yeah.
right? And so you bring up a great point, right? Like so what do you expect? Typically timing wise, and I think that like typically 6 weeks is about the fastest. That someone should really probably get back from a PCL. If it's a grade 3,
Correct.
Maybe it was a grade 1 or grade 2, and he can get back a little more quickly and whatnot. But if it is a grade 3, that would be the fastest, right?
Correct.
And then honestly, I think a more standard answer for coming back from a PCL tear, if it's a grade 3 isolated PCL again, would be more like 8 weeks, 3 months in that vicinity. Depending on how bad it is, if they're not getting over the hump, it could go on 4 months. But typically, it's usually at least 6 weeks. At least 6 weeks before you're going to try.
And I think like we've mentioned, like the PCL is not as bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't require surgery, but your body still goes through the inflammatory process. It's still going to swell up. It's still going to blow up.
Yeah.
And then you're not
swelling, quad function.
Yeah. You're not going to put that athlete out there with a diminished leg and have other problems, because then you go out there, run around, and then your ACL goes, and then we're having a whole different discussion. And now we're going to go to surgery.
You tore your meniscus.
Yeah.
It buckles. You knock off a piece of cartilage. Who knows what happens? And then you're dealing with the secondary injury. It's just,
and that's what you don't want to have happen.
Right. And maybe you get away with it. Maybe you go and you try. Mac Jones, right? We talked about, right? Mac Jones injured in preseason. Was sort of forced to go back and play, when Brock Purdy got hurt.
Right.
And I think he got through the first game, but didn't get through the second game.
The second game he got banged up again.
Yeah,
It's like, man, now we're luckily for the Niners, at least Brock Purdy was healthy enough to get through this game.
Yeah.
But also there was a couple videos I saw of Brock Purdy taking a couple hits, and he was reported pretty sore. And I think the biggest thing for the 49ers specifically in regards to all this, they have 4 days till their next game.
Yeah, that's
Sunday to Thursday is and that's got to be, at least from a medical standpoint, from their medical staff, it's got to be like a really big headache. And I mean, Pearsall hasn't practiced all week. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's not gonna play, because, right? Like, I always tell my
we don't know if it was a PCL. We're speculating.
Right. Just
we don't have access to anybody's medical charts. We're not revealing actually information about them. We're just speculating.
Right. And with that being said, just in general, right? Like, as from a management standpoint from this, you play a game Sunday. Guys are usually really banged up and sore the next day after a game.
Yeah.
I always say inflammation, about 72 hours, runs its course, and then we kind of can manage it and see what we got. And if it goes extended, there's probably something more serious than just whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But now that 72-hour window takes you to Wednesday, and you have a game on Thursday.
Yeah.
So tomorrow is, on Wednesday, we'll find out more about their injury report and what they're looking like when they play this game. But it's a quick turnaround for a very violent and dangerous game, and it's going to be brutal, and it's going to be tough to get those guys back. But the benefit of that is that you have to eat a week, if you will, and you hold these guys out. Then they have extra time to recover. And I don't know what their bye week situation is. If they have a bye week on top of it, then you get like 3 weeks almost out of it, and then you can kind of get guys back in for the long run, which is a very good business decision in the NFL, to make sure your guys who are your studs are going to be for the long run, not the short term.
And that's a team, when healthy, is formidable, right? Like, when healthy. The question is, are they going to get healthy again?
And to speak more about, we're on ligaments and knees, that Nick Bosa from there also tore his ACL this year. He's also out. So it's like another thing of like, it kind of happens in bunches. Where like, I feel like for their medical staff, it's like, man, we just had this ACL. Now we got 2 PCLs. Now we got all this going on. It's like, oh man, we just got to get through the game kind of healthy.
What is going on here?
And figure it out. So a lot more pressure on Christian McCaffrey going into this Thursday night game, I'm pretty sure.
Who are they? I don't even know who they're playing.
The Rams. So the Rams, which is
Whoa.
the conference game.
Yeah.
It's a divisional game.
It's
So that's
important game and
very
a good
important.
team.
Yeah. And the Rams held it out this past weekend. They figured it out and had a
Right.
crazy end to that game as well.
Oh, I missed so much this week.
I know. It wasn't as crazy as the week before where everyone was blocking field goal kicks and figuring it out. Although
Right.
the Eagles did block a punt and score a touchdown, like back to back. Their 2 touchdowns in a row were block kicks or touchdowns, which is crazy.
Yeah. I was listening to some of it.
Yeah. But, with the quick turnaround, playing a big game, yes, there's a pressure of, getting these guys back. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do in 4 days.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's, the biggest point with
There's only so much you can do.
yeah, there's only so much.
It is
The
what
body
it
only
is.
heals so fast.
Right. Right.
We don't have a capsule you can go in to accelerate your healing yet.
Yeah.
It's not. We don't have that kind of technology.
Braces only work so well.
Exactly.
Helpful, but they don't replace your true anatomy.
Right. So to go in regards to Braelon Allen last night, he had a pretty significant valgus force to that knee. He got tackled from the outside, and
Yeah.
it was a weird situation, which is also tough, right? It was on a kick return, which is it's unfortunate for your backup running back to be on special teams, which I'm sure probably good at it.
Yeah.
But he ran into his own blocker in a sense, and then got tackled. So he was really stuck between two things.
Yeah.
And all the force went right to his leg.
Yeah.
And
And he
it-
was planting the foot
Yeah.
when it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was a plant, and then he got tackled from the outside of the leg going in. And there was a pretty good bend in that leg, and you were like, oh, man, that can't be good.
Yeah.
But early reports were just saying just MCL.
Yeah.
Which your biggest concern is MCL with an ACL, like a
right.
Brandon Ayuk of last year or something along those lines.
When I saw it, I literally said to myself, I hope it's just his MCL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally, that's what I said. Yeah.
But I think early reports as of now, and again, the game just happened, so the Jets have a little bit of time before they release an actual injury report, is that he might be ended going on the IR, which is significant enough. It means a 4-week minimum,
Yeah.
which is probably a pretty good amount of damage to that MCL. Is going
At least a grade 2.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a grade 1, then I put him on the IR because he can
Right.
come back week 2, whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's grade 2, he's going on the IR. Probably going to go on the IR. It's probably going to be 3-4 weeks. And then hopefully it's not a grade 3. But even if it is, lots of times they don't need surgery.
Right.
It's just going to take them a lot longer to
Yeah.
get back.
Yeah, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But with that being said, is that, we'll take a little fantasy football spin on this.
Sure.
Breece Hall's looking a lot better now that he doesn't have a backup that's going to be in the way.
Of course, I had him last year. Not this year.
Right.
Last year. But he looks good again, man. He's got pop. He's got speed. He's got power. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was one of the things is it's going to happen. You can't stop it. But these guys have the opportunity now to do better. But it's also interesting now to kind of go back to the Tyreek Hill situation of these bigger knee injuries, these multiple ligament injuries.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder for Tyreek Hill to come back and be effective, where now we're seeing guys like a Nick Chubb,
Yeah.
Javonte Williams for the Dallas Cowboys.
Some amazing stuff.
They're on their swing back, if you will. They're kind of doing a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's
I thought Chubb was done.
yeah.
It's amazing.
But in regards to Chubb, like we talked about in previous episodes, he's had this done twice
I know.
in the same leg,
How?
and he's still back, and he's
How?
still performing at a pretty high level. Although the rookie Woody Marks down in Houston did really well this
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting to see where this kind of ties in with Tyreek Hill, how he does coming back. And usually that first year back, you're not production-wise, you're not going to be that great.
Yeah.
Usually takes a second year, at least 2 years. I follow Sports Med Analytics on Instagram. They have a great content, and they have a lot of statistics on, production dips and other things like that. And that's like he was referring to, Javonte Williams after his injuries took about 2 years. Now he's actually producing again.
Yeah.
So now you're asking Tyreek Hill to get the surgery at 31.
Right.
At age 32, he's going to be a little off.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to hope that age 33 Tyreek Hill is going to be the one that kind of have a back to baseline, if you will,
Right.
for production standards.
He is a freak of nature.
Right.
With, his speed and his explosive power and whatnot.
Yeah.
Coming back from that injury at 33 and a speed-based player,
Yeah.
it's got to be questionable.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe his career is not over. I just don't know if it's ever the same again.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you in that regard.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, like we kind of touched on earlier, right? So not a credible source of where I got the information of that. He had one surgery and that's all he needs.
Right. There's a lot of things that can go wrong
Right.
here with a knee dislocation. Now that's to be distinguished against a patella dislocation,
Right.
which most people call a knee dislocation. It is not. They are two different.
Totally
beasts.
different.
Yeah, very two different entities. Right. And patella dislocation is nothing to to
Downplay, but
Yeah.
it's less significant.
Right. So with the knee dislocation, the tibia, or the tibia and the fibula, two bones in the lower leg, go in the different direction, separate from the end of the thigh bone, the femur, right? And so the most common one goes anterior, where the tibia goes forward or in front of the thigh bone. The next most common is posterior. The problem or the issues here is you have first a big vessel, and it's really one big vessel that for the most part really supplies the leg, what your leg needs, your popliteal artery. Is tethered in that area and doesn't have a whole lot of room to stretch.
Right.
And then two, you have some nerves, big nerves going across that.
Yeah.
Most commonly something called the perineal nerve, common perineal nerve, which goes across the knee and is also fairly tethered, not a lot of room to stretch. So when those things don't line up at all anymore, if you pop a few of those ligaments and everything sort of slides out of the way, there's a pretty high rate of secondary injury. In addition to fracture, in addition to chondral injury, in addition. So first, the perineal nerve, people wind up with a foot drop if you have a perineal nerve injury. Can't lift that ankle. It's between 10 and 40% of the time. So that's a really high number.
Yeah, right.
Approaching 50%.
Yeah.
And of those people, only about half of them will regain the majority of their function. Most people will wind up with partial function. And then, or even no function.
Right.
It doesn't actually wake up. The nerve may not be torn. It just never quite wakes up. And then you wind up having to do like tendon transfers and all this other stuff down the line. And that's not the worst thing that happens here.
Right.
Even worse is the vascular injury.
Correct.
Right? And it can be like sneaky, tricky. So the worst thing is that if you like with a posterior dislocation, and there's two others. There's also you can go medial, lateral, have rotational. And with rotational, it's a really big deal because sometimes you can't get that to reduce it. Literally, the end of the thigh bone, the condyle can pop through the capsule and block you from getting it back lined up.
Right.
And looking at his, I was like, oh, I think it's rotational. But it seems like they did a great job. They were fortunate. They were able to get it reduced, lined back up. But in the posterior one, sometimes the popliteal artery tears, like just flat out tears. And like, that's medical emergency. Like, get to the ER, get to the hospital, get to the operating room, and you need vascular surgery emergently to try to repair that.
Right.
And people lose their legs. And that's one of I think pretty much any athletic trainer, and for the most part, any sports medicine doc who's listening to this or really is aware of that. Like that, this is a very serious, and we see it. I would say almost once a year, or once every other year, where someone has this really bad injury in the NFL.
Correct.
And like we hear, and it reminds us like possibility of losing the leg, possible above knee amputation, kind of a thing. And the reason I say it's sneaky is because you may have pulses. Like the first thing, check to see if they have pulses. And there's enough collateral flow, enough blood flow through the genicular arteries and other arteries that aren't enough to keep the leg alive, but enough to give you a little bit of a pulse, right? Buy you a little bit of time. And that's number one. That's like, don't be outsmarted, number one. Make sure you still check. And then number two, the other thing is there's something called an intimal tear. So the lining of the vessel can sometimes have some tearing. And at first you think you're okay.
Right.
And then 12 hours later, the pulses disappear. All of a sudden, this tearing gets bigger. This sheet of tissue flops over and just completely blocks the blood flow from getting down the leg any further.
Right.
So, in this scenario, I've been in this scenario before, and I send people to the ER, and I want them to be admitted and observed at least 24 hours. That's what I want. And, you can argue and debate the merits of that. What I don't want is them for to go home and lose their pulse and then lose their leg as a result. Right. So that's concern number one. Number two, it used to be CT angiogram right off the bat. I think the pendulum is swinging a little bit. So CT angiogram was like really, really how you tell if there's any vascular injury. It's the best way to tell. I think the pendulum is swung now, whereas the people will do sometimes. You can do ankle brachial indices, which is checking the pressure through your leg and through your arm and looking for differences in pressure and if one, if the pulses are off, two, if the ABIs are off, or then three, really duplex studies or ultrasound type studies to look for injury. And if you find anything on that, yes, get the CT angiogram.
Yeah, right.
But those people need to go to the hospital just like he did yesterday, just like Tyreek Hill did yesterday, and get it checked, right?
Right.
And then in addition, if there's a fracture, right, like which is not uncommon with this particular injury, they need a regular CT to look at the injuries to the bony structure and whatnot. So now bringing all this full circle, as soon as I hear he had surgery already, the first thing I think, like, was there a vascular injury?
Right.
I'm guessing there wasn't. And like sometimes people wind up in what's called external fixators and all this other stuff. And you do want to do the surgery relatively quickly to try to repair those ligaments. Maybe the knee was so unstable they had to do it. I'm surprised about the second part of that statement, and he won't need a second surgery,
right?
Especially if the ACL was torn, because it's kind of rare to do the ACL that quickly after the injury.
Within 24 hours of the injury, right?
Right.
It's a little odd.
Right, like either you put them in an external fixator, which is like this frame that holds the leg in place. You're trying not to do that if you can, because stiffness is a real big issue with these injuries. But then, like, even if you do the surgery and you're repairing the capsule, or you're doing the MCL, the LCL, whatever it is you're doing right off the bat, like, usually you don't do the ACL right off the bat.
Right.
Like, usually come back phase 2, second surgery, and do it later on.
Yeah, and I think that's, if I remember correctly, when we talked about Nick Chubb, he had stage surgery. He had a second surgery. I think he got injured in September, October, and I know he got surgery then, and then he had another surgery back in like November of whatever, like a couple months after to fix the rest of everything.
Lots of times they'll do the MCL right there, or do like an internal brace, do something to temporize and give you some stability in the knee, and then come back after the swelling's down, the motion's better, and all this other stuff. You're really setting somebody up for a stiff knee if you do too much too early.
And then this is not even accounting for the possibility or complications of surgery.
Right.
You know, God forbid, blood clots or other issues, or like
you
even said, like, you know, stiffness or whatever.
Yeah.
He might have to go under and get a manipulation done if he's having range of motion issues in his rehab process. So it's like, yes, the early report is like, oh, he's had one surgery, he only needs one.
Yeah.
Great, that's fantastic news. But in reality, there's so many variables in this recovery process he's going to face now.
Yeah, for sure.
He may not be done.
Yeah. And I'll say, if they're saying that one surgery and he's done, presumably the critical information to take away from that is that probably wasn't a vascular injury.
Right.
Probably doesn't have a foot drop. Probably no perineal nerve.
Correct.
Because there's no way you could say that if he has a foot drop.
Yeah, and like from the looks of the picture and the video, it was his left leg. It rotated towards the right, so you would imagine that
took some of the pressure off.
Right, and but at the same time though, you would kind of be concerned of those lateral structures, because they're going to be kind of twisted off to the side a little bit, and it's just like, oh man, it can't be good. But
it usually pivots around the PCL or pivots around the ACL. One of them goes, and then MCL and or LCL / posterior lateral corner.
Yeah.
And who knows what we got.
And then we're just talking strictly ligaments here. We're not talking about any muscle detachment or anything else. Again, just add more to the fire, right? And fractures and other things like that. And again, we don't have access to all this information, but we're, again, speculating a little bit here. But I think it's to see what's happening. He obviously spent the night in the hospital. He's going to be under observation for a little while.
Glad he did. Yeah.
Correct. And then we kind of see, so what are we looking at if you would have to, again, if all goes perfect.
Yeah.
In the ideal situation for Tyreek Hill here, what's the outlook on his return?
I would say a year the fastest in terms of him being able to play. And like you said, 2 years. And this is still like best case scenarios.
Correct.
2 years for him to look like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. And that's with everything going completely perfect.
Right.
Every day, sunshine and rainbows, and nothing but bad happens, and he has all things in the right direction.
Yeah.
Now, the benefit for a case of Tyreek Hill versus, the average person is that he has access to all the highest, probably the best medical professionals in Miami area.
His job is get healthy.
His job is to
Let's not go to work and try to get healthy on the side.
Right, exactly. His job for the next 12 to 15 months is to figure this out and to get healthy and to rehab and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there will be plenty of social media coverage or posting of him running when he's back doing all these things. And
sooner than anybody else can.
Right. Yeah. And with someone who's a freak athlete, like similar to Tyreek Hill, or like, I think Adrian Peterson.
He's the one we refer to all the
time. He changed the landscape of ACL recovery.
Yeah, it made it way harder on all of us.
100%. And luckily, I think we're almost on the tail end of that.
Right.
Feeling that ripple effect of Adrian Peterson. Because
true.
he's not many people, not that they don't know who he is, but they're not in that era now. These athletes aren't
They don't
looking,
remember that.
They don't remember him. They're not looking up to him as much as like, the newer guys in the league of like the Derrick Henrys, Jonathan Taylors.
Derrick Henry's newer guys in the league.
Yeah, right? Like the newer era of elite running backs, if you will. I think it changes a little bit, but at the same time, these things still take time. It's not your ACLs. Yes, it could be healed, but you have such a high risk of re-injury at the 6 months.
Biology's biology.
Correct. We can't, like I said, we don't have a magic machine. You go in, you just suddenly heal faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works yet.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Some people do a little better than others, and other people don't do quite as well. And you can tailor the protocol a little bit based on how someone's doing. But the bottom line is, it still takes time for these things to heal. It just does.
100%. And I think it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on and see what happens with Tyreek Hill as the next year to year and a half goes, and see how, the benefit, if you will, if you want to take a silver lining, is that it happened early in the season.
True. Yeah,
right?
We talk about that all the time.
Like if it happened, what are we in, week 4?
Yeah.
If we're talking week 15, week 16, then that's going to eat all of next year as well. And then the following year, he's going to miss out. So there's hope that maybe by week 10 of next year, give or take, week, towards the tail end. Yeah. And then you play the game of, like we talked about with Aaron Rodgers before, if the Miami Dolphins are relevant, potentially in the playoffs, and could get him to come back at the right time.
Right.
Then there's a chance that this could be beneficial for them, and he could maybe make an impact of some sort, but
it ain't happening this year.
No, I don't think so. But that goes to say that maybe Jalen Waddle, and now this resurgence of Darren Waller from last night, maybe he might be the ticket of what's going to happen with the receiving game in Miami now.
Yeah. Achane is good. You know, Ollie Gordon looks really good. Like they still have a decent team.
Right.
I don't know what happened that first week. They were in shambles that first week, but they seem to have righted the ship a little bit.
Yeah. Even I think he got hurt in the third quarter of last night, and they figured out how to finish the game without him. Yeah. Which is great for them, and now they have time to prepare with his absence going forward. So maybe those other role players, if you will, or key skill guys could help a little bit in regards to fantasy football perspective here.
Right. Those might be the guys to grab at this point.
Right.
And Waddle's been great. Like I feel like he's always a little bit second fiddle to Tyreek Hill, but like I don't think he's quite the step down that people think that he is. Like he's a really good player.
Really good. Yeah. But the only unfortunate part of with Tyreek Hill going down, now the focus is going to be on Jalen Waddle.
Right.
But you focus on Jalen Waddle, you open up the run game for Achane.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get caught in there, then hopefully if Darren Waller figures it out and keeps staying healthy, then maybe
Jonnu Smith went to Pittsburgh, so.
Yeah, he's gone, and he's not doing so great on my fantasy team, I'll tell you that much.
I know, it's a little disappointing.
Well, you know what, I'll say this.
Yeah.
A crazy situation, little story here. It's pretty well known in the world of Division III football and social media. A question for you. I won't get into your actual age, but what do you think, how would it feel to play a college football game at your age right now?
I would maybe not live through it.
Okay. So this past weekend, Rowan football took on Lycoming College in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we wrestled Lycoming way back when a million years
ago. So they have a 58-year-old defensive lineman on their roster.
No.
Yeah. So this young gentleman.
Drug test that guy. Sorry.
This guy, he's been all over social media and kind of been a big media influence.
Chad Powers?
Yeah, no. Gentleman named Tom Sillo, if you don't know about it, check it out. It's a pretty interesting story. He's 58 years old. He tried out for the team. He made the roster. We were very curious to see if he was going to play this past weekend. He did not. But what a crazy story of this 58-year-old gentleman going out and playing college football.
Yeah.
He never went to college early on in his life. He was working, whatever. But he stayed in shape. He's super strong.
You see a lot of super fit, like people just take it seriously, and so like it's almost not like unfathomable, but it is pretty amazing.
It's pretty impressive, and it's very interesting to be there because everybody knew about this guy.
Sure,
everybody was looking for him. Yeah, and I took a moment to look across the sideline, see what number.
Is that who you guys played this past weekend?
Yeah. So we played him this past weekend. So it was very interesting, and I think. It was a funny moment after the game. Our guys were we were waiting for our food to get to the parking lot for our post-game meal, and he kind of walked by, and all the guys were like, "Oh my God, that's him!" And so there's a big crowd of guys. Local celebrity, right? All our guys went and took a big old selfie with him, or whatever.
That's
it's just
awesome.
a cool. just a very cool story of like
Yeah.
this guy who's just going out and doing it because he
Yeah.
just wanted to do it because he never did it before.
Ride the wave, man. Enjoy every minute.
But man, I hope your joints are holding up well because I could only imagine that doesn't feel great playing
Sure.
football at that age.
Seriously, holy cow! It's funny. So wrestling season's not that far down the road. I love to be able to get back into the wrestling room. My son's wrestling, and I asked him like, what am I going to feel like the next day? Like, is this a worthwhile endeavor? And like, I guess the answer is start slow, right? Like work up. Like,
Slow
don't,
down,
don't-
yeah,
don't
exactly.
go 100 miles an hour
Yeah.
day number one. But like the idea of being on a football field and
Yeah.
taking hits, like, come on. What position does he play?
I
Do
think
we know?
the defensive line, I think, is what is on the roster. Tom, I think his name's Tom Sillo,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. So if you're listening to this and have no idea what I'm talking about, check it out, Google it.
Amazing. Good luck, man.
Yeah,
Good luck, Tom.
You know, see what he does. And I mean, you heard all day was Tom this,
Yeah.
Tom that, and it's like, good for that guy. You know,
Yeah,
he's
seriously.
doing it, and he's super strong, and he stayed in shape his whole life, and like he's able to do this at that age,
Right.
Which is super impressive.
Right.
But just something I wanted to bring up in tonight's talk of all these knee ligaments and stuff, and it's like, man, that old guy's doing it out there, going for it.
Yeah, I hope he's not the next topic of
Yeah,
conversation.
hopefully not, right? So we'll see what happens with that. So just a fun story to kind of follow if you're into, oddities.
I'm
in
going
the
to
world.
pay attention to this now. I am. Thank you.
Yeah. Fun fact, I on his social media, he is sponsored by Aspercream, which is hilarious.
Of course he is.
Right? Like,
Right.
what a perfect
Gay.
candidate.
Yeah.
What a perfect candidate for some good sponsorship there. So I think that's all we have for tonight, folks. Before we go ahead and close out our tab, we're just going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Virtual Orthopedics and Spine. From runner's knee to dog walker's hip, they have a doc for that. Yard work back and laptop wrist, they have a doc for that too. Virtual Orthopedics and Spine has over 120 providers, over 20 PT and rehab facilities, and more than 25 surgical centers all across South Jersey. So find the right specialist for you at virtua.org/ortho. Shout out to Neck of the Woods Brewing Company, giving us the best beers of South Jersey this evening. Dr. Frey and I both
Amazing.
were enjoying a good grape crush sour for the show.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Timber Rail Productions, our guy Kyle, hooking us up with all this media
The best.
outlet, even when he's not feeling so good, and he's still figuring a way to give us our videos
Get
and our
it done.
audio. So thank you, Kyle, for all the work you do for us. We appreciate everybody. Have a good one and stay safe, and we'll see you next time, folks.